I reached to fix her chest plate, and the alien woman whispered, "Careful." The research station Helios Drift moved slowly through open space, like a calm thought drifting between stars. It was not built for war or danger. It existed for cooperation, study, and the quiet work of understanding the universe together. Humans were still new here. Useful, yes, but rarely respected. Elias Morrow knew that feeling well. He walked through Corridor 7 with a small toolkit floating at his side, his boots gently magnetized to the floor. Around him, lights glowed soft blue, adjusted for the vision of multiple species. The station smelled faintly metallic, mixed with something floral that came from the alien hydroponics wing. Elias was an engineer, not a famous one, not a leader, just good with systems, especially systems that behaved in strange ways. Humans, as far as the station records were concerned, were good at improvisation. Not elegance, not discipline, improvisation. That was why he had been assigned to maintenance support instead of core research. He did not complain. As he reached the junction near the diplomatic wing, he noticed a tall figure standing still near the wall. Scifi. Everyone knew Scifi. She was a diplomatic guard from the Cathari Union, a species taller than humans, with pale silver skin and eyes that reflected light like polished glass. She wore her ceremonial chest plate even while off duty. Most Cathari did. The armor was not only protection, it was tradition, identity, and emotional control made physical. Humans were not supposed to touch it. Elias slowed when he noticed something off. The chest plate sat slightly uneven, just a few millimeters misaligned along the left side. Most beings would not see it. Elias did. He hesitated. Protocol said he should report it and wait for a Cathari technician. That could take hours. The station rotation logs showed that Scifi had been standing there for nearly 30 minutes motionless. "Excuse me," Elias said gently, keeping his voice calm. "Ambassador Guard Scifi?" Her head turned slowly toward him. The movement was precise, controlled, her eyes focused on his face. "Yes, human engineer Elias," she said. Her voice was smooth, measured. "State your purpose." He swallowed. "Your chest plate interface appears slightly off alignment. It could cause discomfort or data lag. I can fix it quickly if you want." There was a pause, not long but long enough to feel heavy. Scifi looked down at her chest plate, then back at Elias. "It is tolerable," she said. Elias shifted his weight. "Tolerable usually means problem waiting to grow. I've seen it before." Another pause. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Very well, but be cautious." Elias stepped closer, lifting one hand carefully. He had repaired dozens of alien interfaces before, nothing personal, nothing intimate, just systems. As his fingers came close to the edge of the chest plate, Scifi leaned forward slightly and whispered, so softly that the station microphones did not record it. "Careful." His hand froze. He looked up at her face, confused. "Is it fragile?" "No," she said. "It is sensitive." That was unusual. Cathari technology was known for being rigid and exact. Elias pulled a small scanner from his kit and ran it along the plate without touching. The readings made his brow furrow. The armor was stable, power flow normal, structural integrity perfect. But the biofeedback layer was showing irregular signals, not errors, stress. "That's strange," he muttered without thinking. Scifi's eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." "The chest plate is reacting to your internal state," Elias said slowly. "But not the way it's supposed to. It's overcorrecting, compressing instead of supporting." "That is impossible," she replied. "The chest plate was designed to remove emotional interference." Elias looked again. "That's the problem," she stiffened. "Humans speak clearly." He hesitated, choosing simple words. "It's not broken, it's doing its job too well." Silence stretched between them. Elias realized something then. No Cathari technician had ever stood this close to her while speaking casually. No one had explained what they were doing in real time. They followed scripts, procedures, silence. Humans talked while working. It helped them think. "Do you feel pressure?" Elias asked. "Yes," Scifi answered after a moment. "Constant, increasing." "That's not normal," he said. "Your chest plate is reacting to stress signals you aren't acknowledging." Her jaw tightened. "Cathari do not experience stress in the human sense." Elias smiled faintly. "With respect, everyone does. Humans just admit it." Her eyes flashed, not anger, something else. "Remove your hand," she said. He did immediately, stepping back. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend." She looked away, staring down the corridor. "You did not, you observed." That surprised him. Minutes passed. The station hummed softly around them. If this continues, Elias said carefully, the chest plate might lock into permanent correction mode. It would restrict movement and other functions. Her voice was quieter now. I am aware, he blinked. You knew, yes. Why didn't you report it? She took a slow breath. Because doing so would require acknowledgement of internal instability. That would disqualify me from diplomatic service. Elias felt something heavy settle in his chest. That's not fair, he said before he could stop himself. Scifi looked at him sharply. Fairness is not a measurable system. No, he agreed. But harm is. He thought for a moment, then made a decision that protocol would not like. I can recalibrate it, he said, manually, without logging emotional instability. That would violate station classification standards. Humans violate standards all the time, he replied. That's why we're useful. She studied his face. Humans were strange. Their expressions changed too easily, too honestly. Why would you help me? She asked. He shrugged slightly. Because it's the right fix. Another long pause. Finally, she nodded once. Proceed carefully. Elias stepped forward again, this time slower. He placed his hand against the chest plate, not to force it, but to feel the vibration, the subtle resistance. The system responded instantly, the biolayer shifting under his palm. He spoke softly as he worked, explaining each movement, each adjustment. Not for her benefit, he thought, but because it felt natural. The pressure readings eased slightly. Scifi's shoulders lowered by a fraction. Neither of them noticed the station AI flagging the interaction as anomalous. The armor was listening. And for the first time, it was not rejecting what it sensed from a human. Part 1 ends here. The station AI noticed the change before anyone else did. The data stream from Scifi's chest plate shifted from rigid correction loops into something softer, adaptive. The system did not have a category for it, so it labeled the event as a temporary anomaly and continued to observe. Elias did not know any of that. He only felt the subtle change beneath his hand, like tension slowly letting go. He adjusted a final setting and stepped back. That should hold, he said quietly. Scifi did not answer at once. She stood very still, her eyes unfocused, as if listening to something far away. The pressure she had carried for weeks was no longer pushing against her chest. It was still there, but it was not being crushed down, it was being balanced. This sensation, she said slowly, it is unfamiliar, Elias nodded. The system is sharing the load instead of fighting you. That is not how it was designed. He smiled a little. A lot of things work better when they're allowed to adapt. She looked at him, really looked at him this time. Humans were strange. They bent rules without breaking them. They talked to machines as if they were partners, not tools. You have altered a cultural artifact, she said. I adjusted a support system, Elias replied. The meaning stays yours. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she straightened her posture, testing the armor. Her movements were smoother, less forced. The pressure has stabilized, she said. If this state is discovered, it won't be logged, Elias said. I routed the data through a standard maintenance buffer. Looks boring, nobody checks boring. That made her pause. Humans hide truth inside simplicity, she said. We hide solutions there, he answered. They stood together in the corridor longer than necessary. Eventually, Scifi inclined her head. You have my gratitude, Elias Morrow. He felt awkward. Just doing my job. No, she said, you did more. As she turned to leave, the station lights shifted slightly, adjusting to her calmer biosignature. Elias watched her go, feeling something he could not quite name. The next day, the change became impossible to ignore. During a diplomatic meeting, Scifi spoke with unusual clarity. Her words were still precise, but there was warmth in them now. Other species noticed. The Cathari delegation noticed most of all. After the meeting, a senior Cathari observer requested a systems check. Elias was called in. He stood in a quiet diagnostics room facing a projection of Cathari officials and station administrators. The AI monitored every word. Explain the modification, the lead Cathari said. Elias chose his words carefully. There was no modification. Only recalibration. You allowed emotional variance, another said. Yes, Elias replied simply. That is considered instability. Only if you treat it as a fault, he said. Humans treat it as data. The room went quiet. Scifi stood beside him, silent but steady. Her chest plate glowed softly, no longer rigid, no longer strained. She performs better, Elias continued. Clearer judgment, faster response, less internal conflict. You cannot measure internal conflict, the Cathari said. Elias met their gaze. We do it every day. The station AI finally spoke. Performance metrics confirm improved diplomatic efficiency. That caused visible discomfort among the observers. You allowed a human variable into a closed system, one said. Yes, Elias answered again. Scifi stepped forward. I authorized the action. All eyes turned to her. I am still Cathari, she said, but I am no longer compressed into silence. This does not weaken me. There was a long pause. Finally, the lead observer spoke. This method must be studied. And just like that, the question was no longer about violation. It was about value. In the days that followed, humans were requested for tasks they had never been trusted with before. Not command, not authority, interface work, translation between feeling and function. They sat beside machines and aliens alike, explaining, narrating, listening. Systems that had never failed suddenly worked better, not because humans were stronger or smarter, because they allowed space for what others tried to erase. Scifi met Elias again in the observation deck, stars drifting slowly beyond the glass. My people believed perfection meant control, she said. Your people believe perfection is movement. Elias thought about that. We believe perfection is surviving change, she nodded. Then perhaps that is why you endure. Below them, the station AI updated its classification records. Humans were no longer listed as emotionally excessive. They were listed as adaptive stabilizers. Elias leaned on the railing, watching the stars. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like himself, and for the first time on Helios Drift, that was more than enough. The change did not stop at Helios Drift. At first, it was small things. A human technician was asked to sit beside a rigid translation core and talk through its process. A human medic was invited into an alien recovery room, not to treat the body, but to explain what rest felt like. A human engineer was asked to adjust lighting, sound, and silence, not by numbers alone, but by instinct. Elias found himself busier than ever. Requests came in daily. Not orders, invitations. He walked through the station corridors with the same quiet steps, but now heads turned, not in suspicion, in curiosity. Humans were no longer just useful. They were different in a way that mattered. One evening cycle, Elias was called to a private chamber near the diplomatic ring. The message came directly from the station council. No urgency markers, just a request. Scifi was already there when he arrived. She stood near the center of the room, her posture calm, her chest plate steady. The glow along its surface had changed over time, less harsh, more fluid. You asked for me? Elias said. Yes, she replied, and so did they. The room lights shifted and several holographic figures appeared, representatives from multiple species. Cathari, Lumarin, Vasai, and others Elias only knew from manuals. The Helios Drift experiment has produced results, one of them said. Elias frowned. Experiment. Scifi glanced at him. They observe everything, she said softly. The representative continued. Systems recalibrated by humans show long-term stability. Emotional variance, once considered interference, appears to reduce system collapse. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. We didn't invent anything new. You applied something unique, another voice said. Presence. That word felt heavy. We are not asking humans to lead, the first representative said. We are asking them to interface. With what? Elias asked. With us. Silence filled the room. Scifi stepped forward. They want to create a shared protocol, one that allows species to remain themselves without suppression. Elias looked at her. That's big. Yes, she said, and dangerous. Dangerous how? For cultures built on control, she answered. Change always is. The council requested volunteers. Not many humans agreed at first. Humans knew what it meant to be misunderstood, but some did. Quiet ones, observers, listeners. Elias became one of the first official human interface liaisons. The work was slow, sometimes frustrating, sometimes deeply strange. He sat with a Vasai navigator who had not rested properly in years because her people believed rest weakened awareness. Elias did not argue. He just described how humans rested with one eye open in dangerous places, how rest could sharpen focus instead of dull it. The navigator tried it. Her reaction time improved. He spoke with a Cathari trainee whose chest plate locked every time he hesitated. Elias did not teach him confidence. He taught him that hesitation was information, not failure. The chest plate unlocked. Word spread, not loudly, carefully. Some resisted. Not all cultures wanted humans involved. Some feared emotional contamination. Some feared loss of identity. Scifi faced this resistance daily. She stood before her own people and spoke without compression. "This is not surrender," she said. "This is expansion." Not all agreed. Some turned away from her. That hurt more than she expected. One cycle, she found Elias in the observation deck again. The stars were bright. "Quiet. Doubt grows," she said. He nodded. "That happens when things start to matter." She looked at him. "Does it ever stop?" "No," Elias said honestly, "but it becomes familiar." She considered that. The station AI, now running updated models, observed something unusual. Conflicts did not increase with emotional allowance. They decreased. Misunderstandings resolved faster. Systems recovered sooner after stress. The AI logged a conclusion it could not fully explain. Human presence reduced entropy. Months passed. A new station was built nearby, smaller, experimental. Humans were invited at the design stage, not to plan structure, to plan flow. They suggested open spaces and quiet corners. Shared areas and private ones, not by species, by need. The station thrived. Elias visited once, walking its halls with a sense of quiet pride. He was not famous, his name was not on plaques, but his work was everywhere. One day, a message arrived from beyond the local cluster. A distant coalition had heard rumors. They wanted to observe humans, not study. Observe. A delegation arrived. They watched humans work, not during speeches, during maintenance, during shared meals, during silence. They saw humans explain mistakes without shame. Admit uncertainty, adjust without loss of self. The delegation left with no formal statement. 3 cycles later, they requested human liaisons. Elias never left Helios drift. He stayed because someone had to remember how it started, with a small misalignment. With a whispered warning, Scifi remained by his side not as a guard alone, but as a bridge. Her chest plate was no longer feared. It was studied, carefully, respectfully. It was never replicated exactly. That was important. One evening, Elias asked her, "Do you regret it?" She answered after a long pause, "No, I regret that we waited so long." The station drifted on. Humans did not conquer space. They did not rule it. They touched it gently, listened to it, and allowed it to change them back. And for a universe built on rigid perfection, that simple, fragile skill turned out to be the most powerful one of all. The universe did not change all at once. It never did. It changed the way slow water shaped stone, through patience and pressure that could not be measured in reports. Helios Drift continued its quiet path between stars, but now it was no longer just a research station. It had become a reference point. Other stations asked questions. Other worlds sent observers, not to copy, but to understand. Elias felt the weight of that more than he expected. He was still an engineer. He still carried his tool kit. But now people waited when he spoke. They listened when he explained things slowly in plain words. That made him careful. Influence was a fragile thing. One cycle, the station received a signal from a distant Cathari enclave. It was not hostile. It was not friendly. It was uncertain. They requested Scifi. She stood alone in the communication chamber, Elias nearby but silent. The image of the enclave elders appeared, their chest plates rigid, polished, untouched by adaptation. "You have changed," one elder said. "Yes," Scifi replied calmly. "You allow internal variance." "Yes, that path leads to fragmentation." Scifi's hands remained steady. "It leads to survival." The elders exchanged looks. "Our systems are failing," one admitted. "Lock patterns increase, identity loss grows." Scifi did not smile. "Because you demand silence where there is noise." There was tension, but no anger, just fear. "We request assistance," the elder said. The word hung heavy in the chamber. After the transmission ended, Scifi exhaled slowly. Elias stepped closer. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "but this will not be easy." A team was formed, not large. Humans, Cathari, and a few others who had learned to live between rules. They traveled to the enclave. The place was beautiful in a strict way, clean lines, perfect symmetry, quiet that pressed against the ears. Elias felt uncomfortable almost immediately. Scifi noticed. "Too controlled," she said softly. "Feels like holding your breath forever," Elias replied. They began work carefully. No forcing, no breaking traditions. Humans sat with Cathari technicians and listened. They asked how things felt, not just how they functioned. At first, answers were stiff, scripted. Then one technician hesitated before responding. Elias noticed. "That pause," he said gently. "What happened there?" The technician stiffened. "Nothing." "That's fine," Elias said. "Nothing is still something." The technician blinked. Small moments like that mattered. Chest plates were adjusted one by one, not loosened, not replaced, just allowed to respond instead of command. Some Cathari cried for the first time in their lives, quiet tears, confused but relieved. Others felt anger they had never named. Humans did not correct them. They sat with them. Not everyone accepted it. Some elders withdrew. Some systems were locked permanently, unable to adapt. Those losses were mourned. Humans mourned openly. That shocked the Enclave more than anything else. "You grieve failure?" one elder asked Elias. "Yes," he said. "It teaches us what matters." Slowly, the Enclave stabilized. When the team returned to Helios Drift, the station felt different again. Fuller, more layered. The station AI updated its projections. Human interface protocols were no longer experimental. They were essential. Elias read the update in silence. He did not feel proud. He felt responsible. One night, he stood alone in the maintenance bay, staring at a system panel he had repaired dozens of times. His hands rested on the metal. "Thinking too hard again," Scifi said from behind him. He smiled faintly. "Maybe. You worry that humans will be relied on too much," she said. "Yes," he admitted. "What happens if they stop listening to themselves?" Scifi stepped beside him. "Then they will need humans again." He laughed softly. "That's a strange comfort." She watched him. "You never sought power." "I still don't," he said. "That is why it is safe near you," she replied. Beyond Helios Drift, the changes continued. Humans were invited to worlds they had never imagined seeing. Not as rulers, not as saviors, as companions in transition. Some humans refused. Some returned home overwhelmed. Humanity was not perfect. It never claimed to be. That honesty remained its greatest strength. Years passed. Elias grew older. Not weak, just slower. He trained others, taught them to listen before fixing, to explain without fear of sounding simple. Scifi remained unchanged in form, but deeper in presence. Her chest plate now adjusted itself without conscious thought. It had learned from her as much as she had learned from it. One evening they stood together watching a new station ignite its lights for the first time. "Do you think this will last?" Elias asked. Scifi considered the stars. "Nothing lasts," she said, "but meaning can travel." He nodded. "Then I think that's enough." The universe did not become peaceful, but it became understandable. And that was the beginning of something far greater than control.